good evening. Welcome. Allison Schaefer back here for my Facebook Live series called #Family Talk. So if you have been watching these in the past, welcome back. Thank you so much for being part of the community and part of the conversation. If this is your first time watching, great. Glad that you could be here with us. I just want to tell you a little bit about what the Family Talk program is about. So besides this regular series of ongoing Facebook Lives that we do around different topics throughout the year, we also have these archived and they reside as a collective on my YouTube channel. So you don't have to watch them in order. You can jump in anytime. You can jump in just on a specific topic as it relates to what's going on in your family life. Of course, we'd love everyone to watch everything. And so tonight, in order for us to come together as a community, I want us to understand just at the highest level that what we're trying to accomplish over all of these topics is a way to help parents feel more empowered, more competent, more confident in how to prevent underage drinking or respond appropriately when they do discover that their kids have been drinking. And so we break that down into different skills and techniques, but the whole thing is based around how we can use our healthy relationship so that we use influence rather than control for our kids' independent decision making, because as you know, we can't always be there. So how can they make good decisions for themselves when we're not there? And that we're anchoring that conversation around the importance of our family values, around being law-abiding and being healthy to our bodies in the young developing mind stage of adolescence. So that's the core piece about it. And what we know from our research is that when we can get parents to be effective in their role, that actually it's the parent who is most likely to prevent their child from underage drinking. So if we empower you, you're going to empower your kids, and then we're going to do a much better job at improving our underage drinking rates, which are, by the way, improving all the time. So that's really, really good news. Tonight, I specifically wanted to talk about this back to school because here we are in August. There's many of you who are sending your kids off to high school for the first time, or sending your kids off to college, university, off to campus. And I have been there. My two daughters, I dropped them both off and had to drive away and feel like, wow, I don't have them under my roof anymore. How am I supposed to be there as a support person to them? How am I supposed to keep an eye on their risky behavior if I'm not there? So this is some of what we want to cover off tonight. So just so that you understand the format, try to make this sort of quick and fast. I want you to be able to know the content that I'm going to cover tonight. Then we're going to open this up to a Q&A. But having said that, please, as I said, it is a community. We want to encourage people to post their questions. I've got Catherine here who's going to be curating the questions, and if she can see what people are interested in chatting about, she can go dig for links. So don't wait till the Q&A at the end. Please start posting. Maybe you can let me know where you're from. I'm so curious to know. Hey, there's Robert, Mark, how are you? Let me know where you're actually watching from. Let me know the ages of your kids, whether you're actually sending somebody off. I'd like to know who's here joining us tonight. So we're going to talk about our topic tonight, then we'll do our Q&A, and then most importantly, please, what's really helpful to me is to know that these conversations that we're having, these Facebook Lives, are actually making a difference, that they're impactful, that you're learning from them, and that you're able to apply this at home. And the only way that we can show that is by doing a survey. So I've got a link to a survey after we finished up all the content, and I would really, really appreciate it if you could participate in that. And anyone that spends the time, I want to thank you for your time. There's a $5 Tim Hortons card for anybody who actually completes the survey. And anyone who posts a question, a comment, jumps in this conversation, we're going to put your name in a draw, and we will randomly pick somebody to get a $250 Visa card. So post lots, post often, engage in the community, not only asking me questions, but supporting one another. You can cross-chat with each other as we're going through things. So because it is back to school, what I want to cover off at the top here then is just to really understand the challenges that our kids face as they're going off, leaving underneath our roof and trying to get into their new friends group. I want to talk specifically about what we need to cover off from an educational point of view in terms of campus safety. How are they going to be safe while they're away from home? And I also want to talk about campus policies. These are conversation pieces that we kind of think our kids know, but if we don't actually specifically have these conversations, we can get into some troubles. And again, I want to talk about safety when it comes to motor vehicles, and how to have that conversation with your kids, and lastly about how to stay in touch from afar. So let's get going here. Heading off to school in the new year, and again, I wanted to include the high school people because a lot of students have been in the same cohort of people, and now they're going off into different feeder schools, and it's sort of like a big milestone for them in terms of creating a new friend group, finding their new friend group, getting a new reputation with their friend group, and very much the same when you go off to university. Maybe some people going off to university, but mostly when you're going off to university and college, that's the first thing on your mind. Who will I make friends? Will I be liked? Who will I hang out with? And I know that parents think that the most important thing is that you've paid all this money to send your kid off and you want them to focus on academia. They will, but you really can't excel at studying if your mind is still concerned with a human being's number one important piece, which is how do I know I belong? How do I know that I'm connected? The good news is that universities have been taking in freshmen for years and years and years, and they know that if those kids don't settle into campus and get connected and start making those friendships and feel at home, those kids will drop out because it's just they won't stay in what feels like a not good social situation for them. So they work really hard to get the kids to connect and get to know one another, and so it does take on a bit of a party atmosphere. And so Frosh Week, well, it is supposed to be about bonding and socializing, and I really think that's important. And yes, I think the schools do it well, and yes, I think we need to tell our kids, go for it, participate, don't hide in your room, encourage them to make those friends in the early days while everybody's getting to know one another before anyone's already kind of decided on who their pals are. Really encourage them to jump in. But it also means that if Frosh Week is there and socializing is happening, you've now got a child who is away from home with new freedoms and probably increased access to alcohol like never before. And the whole mood is where they're not into studying yet, they're still into socializing. So this is a high risk time in terms of likelihood of kids drinking. So before we send our kids off, we want to be able to appreciate the conflict that's going to happen for them. Because if you've been following along with the program and you've been talking to your children about your expectations and talking about your values, that in our family we don't believe in breaking the law, that you're still a minor, so we don't pick and choose which laws we like and don't like. It's illegal. We don't drink. Age-restricted laws are made specifically for different reasons, like voting and driving cars. There's a developmental piece why they want to delay you on that. And as frustrating as it is, because you're off at college and a lot of the other college and university people are legal drinking age, we still expect you to follow our family values. And so if you've got a child who has a good relationship with you and wants to uphold those family values and hold themselves in good opinion with you, and now they're off at campus and they're trying to make friends, and that peer pressure to want to fit in and belong suddenly has them feeling like, I want to make this friend and do what everyone else is doing so I can kind of fit in with this new group of people. I don't want them to think I'm the square or the nerd or whatever it is, but I really love my parents and I want to do right by them. It's a conflict, and we really need to be able to honor with them that it's hard. What they're going to do is hard. But here's where we can give them some support. The first thing is to think about if they're out there and they're picking new friends. If there's a friend who is going to judge them because they said no to alcohol and give them a hard time about that, and that is not a good quality for a friend. That makes for a very crumbly foundation for a friendship. So I think we need to encourage them to consider that. If someone is really razzing you up over that behavior, what else are they going to razz you up about? How really open and accepting are they for your full personality, if that's going to be the first opening sticking point? So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is, yeah, you know what? You're going to be in these situations and the bottle is going to get passed around. And so what will you do? How are you going to handle that? Because if you're anxious about social acceptance, you're in a new environment, you don't know the social rules, there's a lot being thrown at our youth all at the same time. So preparation is always going to be put them in a better place. And what I mean by that is, start talking to them about what they would feel comfortable saying. So I want them to really take ownership and feel it kind of to their bones that this would be something that they would really be okay saying. And you can think about what those lines might be, and I'll give you some examples of the other. First of all, you can say, I'm the designated driver. Designated drivers are the heroes. People love that you're the designated driver. That means other people get to drink. So you can say, yeah, you know what, even if you're the designated driver for walking, whatever, you're like the lookout person tonight. Whether you want to say, you know what, I can't, I'm on meds and I can't take any alcohol with these meds. Or, you know what, actually I'm on the sports team, or I'm trying out for a team and I got an early practice in the morning, or I don't want to lose my chances of getting on the team because it's frosh week, so maybe they're still doing selection. I want to be in peak form. I don't want to mess with that. The point is, it's got to feel really good and genuine to them. And so when they go into these situations, they're already set. Maybe they take a non-alcoholic beer and it looks the same, or they put something in a cup that looks the same as a mixed drink and nobody knows. Whatever is going to work for your kid that's going to make them feel confident and prepared, then that's great. But do walk that through them with them in advance. And so I think the other thing to remember is that they're going to be on campus, or they're going to be hanging out with these new friends group, or they may be thinking like high school is like the age where you got to prove you're mature or whatever it is. But the point is, it's going to be a greater likelihood that they're going to have access. And I think we need to be reasonable in saying, and mistakes happen. So that's a really careful distinction there, parents. There's a difference between saying, hey, my expectation is that you won't drink. Our family values are that we don't break the law. But you know what? I also know that people make mistakes, and I need to make sure that we can recover from mistakes. So I'm not condoning, but I also want to go a little bit further in terms of talking about what life is going to be away from home when I can't be the eyeballs on you to make sure that you are safe in those environments. So when you are doing your campus tour, when you're dropping them off, you need to say to them, listen, you need to be able to protect yourself and stay safe when you're on this campus. If you're dropping them off on the other side of the country, you can't jump in a car and get to them in 20 minutes the way you could, when they were in high school or whatever. So what will you do? Where will you go? Get them to find know where the campus security number is, where the campus security stations are. Have them feel that campus security has their back. Have them know where the local hospital is. I think it's important now too that we talk to our kids, because there is such an increase in binge drinking, that it isn't just people are going to be tippling a little drink at a party. The chances are they're going to be in a situation, hopefully not them, but there may also be this sober person at a party where they drink so much that there could be alcohol poisoning. And it's really important that we review with our kids what those signs of alcohol poisoning are, so that they don't just think that one of their friends, or maybe themselves, if they don't educate their friends, that if they pass out, doesn't mean like, oh, they'll pass out, they'll sleep it off, we'll see them in the morning. Because it could well be that while they're in a passed out state, they throw up and then they choke and asphyxiate on their own vomit. That's how people die. Or they've drunk so much that it isn't just that they've passed out, they've literally have enough alcohol in their bloodstream that it will slow down the brainstem functioning until respiration stops. So we can't expect kids to know this. We need to teach them and educate them. So jump online and read signs of alcohol poisoning so that they are watching and not just laughing it off. Some people truly need medical help, and they've got to be the eyeballs to keep an eye on their friends, and their friends have to be the eyeballs to keep an eye on them. We want our kids to be safe. And so since we're talking about campus security, campus calls, we also have to talk about campus policies, or your high school policies. So it's important to know that the only policy is not just it's illegal to underage drink and you're not allowed to have alcohol in the dorm. A lot of kids confuse that, because what they'll do is they'll go off campus and drink, and then they're walking home from a frat house party or something, and campus security will stop them and they're like, I wasn't drinking on campus, I was drinking over there, and now I'm just going home to bed, but I don't have, there's nothing on me. If you're drunk on campus, those campus security people at different universities will have to check out the policy at your place, can potentially expel you. And again, go read the campus policies, because if you're there on a scholarship, it may be that you lose that scholarship. So it's important to not have that little oopsie moment end up being something that costs you a school year, or ends up having you go somewhere else. I'd hate for a kid's dreams to be dashed simply because they didn't have the information. So go on to your campus website, university college website, and do that research. And again, it's not that you're condoning it, it's just that you're really saying, let's walk this through. You're going to be in this environment, whether for yourself or a friend. This is good information to disseminate amongst you first year people. So let's stay on it. I'd hate to have somebody have a terrible consequence for something just out of simple lack of knowledge. So that's our job. And then of course, people come to campus and university often because they've been given a car. Parents want their kids to be able to get home to see them on the weekends. And by the way, I really think that if you can encourage your kids to stay put on campus or wherever they're living until at least Thanksgiving, just as a general, because on the weekends, that's when people are going to socialize, and you do really want to get them embedded. And if they're shy and they just keep running home, I don't want them to avoid making friends. But suddenly there's going to be a lot of cars. And again, now we've got this, people approaching drinking age tend to have a higher likelihood of drinking underage. And now we're introducing freedoms and we're introducing a motorized vehicle. I know that it's, as adults, we think that the kids have got the message, but I would restate again, it is never okay to operate a car if you have been drinking. Never get behind the wheel if you have been drinking. Stating that again, it's just never okay. It's not even just about your own life. Imagine if you ended up killing somebody else. How could you live with the consciousness of that? There's no, not in the day of Uber and Lyft and public transportation. Let your kids know you can charge any Uber account. Don't let me have to go to a hospital to see you. There's just too many alternate forms of getting around that there's really no reason ever to get behind a wheel. And I'm saying the word wheel, but I also want parents to include, because again, depending on where you go to campus, you might be somewhere near water where now you've got a university that's got a lovely little beach and people have boats. We're talking about anything that is motorized. So that includes in the winter skidoos. That means jet skis, dirt bikes, ATVs. Any of those things can prove deadly because we know when we're drinking, the brain is not able to process information as quickly, and we make poor decisions, bad judgments, and those can end up lethal when you get some motor power and speed behind you. And I would include longboards. There's no motor on a longboard, but those things can go click, and if you smash your head, potentially lethal. So make sure you include all of those crafts when you're explaining to your kids. And it also means, besides them operating those vehicles, it also means don't be a passenger. If somebody else has been drinking, maybe they are the legal drinking age, don't get in their car. You know, again, this idea of like, well, it was my ride home. I didn't know how else I was going to get home. That's never okay. You know, that's kids not thinking in the moment, because when you are an adolescent, your brain is under development. You're not able to process. That's why as parents, we're trying to kind of be the parallel processor and walk this through so that they're not just relying on their own problem-solving abilities in the moment. So you're young, your brain's developing, and now you're intoxicated, you're probably not making good decisions. So let's do a dry run rehearsal of how this is going to go so that we don't have to rely on your thinking mechanism in that moment. So, you know, you can walk through scenarios. What will you do if you got a ride to a bar and then the person was drinking and you couldn't get back home? What else could you do? Walk through all the different scenarios. And like I said, a lot of parents give their kids credit cards or actually access to their Uber app or whatever, just so long as you have already got a plan B and even a plan C in place so you can say to your kids, so now there's no way you will ever be stranded. We've got a solution to this. Never get in the car, and take the keys away from that person. It's worth having the fight and the friendship to remove those keys and keep somebody else. They might be mad at you in the moment, but the next day they're alive and they'll thank you. Their parents will thank you. So if everybody has that attitude that it's not okay, and I think we're again improving matters around that, because we're moving social norms, and we're moving social norms because people like you are watching information about how to parent, and the more people change, the more we start seeing the whole societal expectation change, which is why now everybody wears bicycle helmets. It's why everybody recycles in blue bins. Like if we get everybody saying nobody drinks and drive, what are you, goof? Of course you don't. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in taking away the keys. So that's why I want this Family Talk program to be a thing where we link arms together. It is so much easier when we're all approaching this so that we really do move the needle and parents don't feel so like, well, why is my kid the only one? Am I the only sane parent here? No, together we're stronger. Together we can do this together. So the last piece that I just want to talk about is about staying in touch, because it is stressful going away, and kids do need to have a sense of belonging. I don't want them to come running home, but if we keep checking in on them with phone calls and a little bit of text messaging and checking their social media feeds, we can see, how are they doing? Are they lonely? Are they isolated? Are we suddenly seeing a lot of pictures with alcohol in the background on their social media feeds, in which case we need to talk about what's going on about that, and also educate them about why it's a bad idea to be promoting yourself as somebody who's doing illegal activities because of future employers, and how everything gets cached and saved, and is that the best reflection, the best foot forward that they'd like to have of themselves. But stay in touch. You know, they've got one foot in adulthood and one foot still in childhood. And I know sometimes even if they don't reply right away, or they think, you don't want to be overly in their face, but even when they don't respond, they're like, yeah, someone's thinking of me. I'm being missed. Somebody loves me out there. So they might only reply on their timeline, but at least you're constantly making yourself available so that they know that they're significant, important, and that you're thinking of them and that you've got their back. So now it's time for you folks. So again, if you just jumped in halfway through, I want to make people be aware, so we're all in this together. We are going to turn this over to Q&A. If you post questions, engage in the comment field, your name will be put into a draw. We're going to have one random winner win a $250 Visa card. So post. Quick comment. And I'm going to post a survey link at the very end. That survey link is about the information that was covered in this Facebook Live. So please, hopefully you watched it all from the beginning. You've got all the information that you need. And anyone that's going to give, it's such a short survey, less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes, I promise you. It's quick. Just a couple of questions. And anyone that spends time and does the survey, you will be thanked with the $5 Tim Hortons card. So let me buy you a coffee for helping me out. Now let me turn it over to questions. Catherine has been following you along. Hi, Betty. Hi, Josie, Linda, Jenny. Yeah. Okay. I can see I have to tell you, I have the new bigger phone, and now I can see your names. I couldn't use, on my old phone, the point size was too small. I couldn't see who was logging in. Yeah. Go ahead, Catherine.
My 16-year-old son is refusing to be tethered, meaning when he goes out, he won't say where he's going or when he'll be home. He's usually home by midnight, but still, we have no communication about it. What should you do?
Yeah. So, a part of what we're trying to achieve in this program is appreciating the fact that once your kids hit a certain sort of age of emancipation, as it were, we really can't control them. Right? We can't make them do anything. So the idea is we got to make them wanna. We want to win their cooperation and influence the choices they make rather than controlling them. So somehow he is feeling, by letting you know where he is going, that is too much control. And it makes me think that maybe in the past there might have been too much checking in or too much micromanaging, and he just assumes for some reason that if he tells you, you're going to say no, or you're going to bug him, or something else. So I would say we got to speak to him about how you can build up the trust in the relationship, so that you are kind of just doing your due diligence, that you do not want to impede on his fun, but this is just for safety. And maybe you are asking him to check in too much. Many parents, right when I was kids, it was like, come back when the street lights were on. I think in this day and age, this idea of where are you now, where are you now, where are you now? I mean, some of it is we do need to back up. And if they've got a cell phone and they're safe and you have a general idea of who they're hanging around with, maybe we need less information than what you've been requesting. So I would have a conversation about saying, like, can we strike a balance here? It makes me feel really uncomfortable to think that you're out and about, and if something happened to you and the police called and they'd say, well, where was he going tonight? What did he say he was doing? And I don't want my reply to the police officer to be like, I have no idea, he tells me nothing. It's going to look like I am failing as a parent who's providing adequate supervision. So if you can appeal to it as just like more like what would be the right amount of information for a parent who's sending a 16-year-old out in the world to be safe? Can we agree on that level? And so again, hopefully when he sees that you're willing to like back up a little bit, then maybe he would be willing to give a little bit bare minimum. But it all goes down to having that relationship, because you can't, he'll go. What's he gonna do? He'll run away from home. So appeal to that logic and work the relationship. Yeah.
Okay. My daughter is leaving for college for the first time with a roommate she doesn't know. What can I say to her on how she can avoid being pressured when she might want to fit in with a roommate who may drink?
Yeah. So, again, earlier in the Facebook Live, I was talking about what makes a good friend, what makes a good roommate. And you might start by just generating a list of qualities that she's looking for. And, somehow in all of that, pressuring you to act, be, say, do something that you are not is not okay. And you can compare that to other things. It's like a boyfriend pressuring you to kiss when you don't feel like kissing or whatever. It's like, no, you got to be okay with my limits and boundaries. You got to be okay with me saying no. I'm not going to do everything the same as you. And again, it might come down to those lines about like, I'd love to, but my parents are real sticklers. Like, I don't want to, they'll call me tonight. And if they see my eyes all droopy, it's like, nah, it's not going to be any good. And again, I think there's just more kids now that are really willing to say, it's not my thing. Like there's so, like I said, the majority of minors are not drinking alcohol now. And so we can tell her, just live with your roommate. You don't spend that much time with your roommate. You can study in the library, but find your people who don't drink if that's the easier thing. Find a club, join a social committee, whether that is water polo, robotics, or whatever it might be. Find your group of people where there's no pressure there, and maybe your roommate isn't your bestie. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that we should do drop-in, pop-ins to our kids the first few weeks of university to do spot checks?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think that like doing a surprise, like door knock dinners. I think they're going to interpret that as snooping. I think would be fair to say, I'd love to come by and check out your new room. But I think a spot check, it doesn't have to be necessarily for alcohol. I mean, it could well be just that their like clothes are all over the place and whatever. And you're like coming over to their place. Like I wouldn't want people to just pounce on me in my place. I want a bit of advance warning at some point. So no, I don't think so. But that's not to say if some other friend is visiting and having a look around, we can all have each other's backs. Yeah, but they can't store their alcohol on campus either. They're again, read the campus policies.
Is it wrong if I tell my daughter that she needs to text me when she gets home from parties, even though she's away at university, or I'll stop paying for her phone?
Yeah, I think now that she is off at college, she is that is a stage of independence where you won't know where they are. I think from a developmental point of view, this is the new freedom where you don't check in with your parent every night. So yeah, I would say that you have to give up the expectation of checking in on her travels. I mean, there's a nicety, like I find it very nice when people say, hey, text me when you arrive so I know you got there safely when you're driving. But I think that's more like just it's a nicety. But I think with kids, it feels more like micromanagement. So do they have a roomie? Who are they, they have got a system for making sure that they understand going out accompanied, and again, safety getting home and not getting in strangers' cars, and you don't walk home with someone that you don't know, and where those security buttons are on campus when you're walking across campus, because we know that's where a lot of assault happens. So I would teach safety, but I wouldn't expect her to text when she's coming home. No.
Okay, how should we react if our daughter FaceTimes us from university during Fresh Week and appears to be drinking? Mm-hmm.
So if they text and you notice that they're drinking, and during our other Facebook Lives, you can go back and there's a whole archived Facebook where we're talking about what to do if you catch your children drinking. But the short form is, I would say, first of all, just say what you see. because of course if you say, have you been drinking, they're going to go, no. So I never want to set people up for lies, because now you got a kid who's drinking and they lied to you. So we're just matters are getting worse. So instead, what I would say is something like your speech is slurred and your eyes look all weird and wonky there, and then I might say, looks to me like you've been drinking, or it looks to me like you're addled, under the influence of something. You can keep it broad and general like that. You don't look like yourself. You don't look okay. You look addled. I'm concerned about that. Are you safe? What have you taken? And again, a lot of this goes down. We're just doing that checklist to find out. One is, do we need to talk about whether or not they need medical help? And if they need medical help, then that means that we need to be acting in the capacity of a doctor, nurse, caregiver, which is a very different hat than being like a disciplinarian. And there's no point in trying to be a disciplinarian with somebody who's addled and under the influence, because they're not taking in what you're saying. So I would say, you know what? You need to stop doing whatever you're doing, get yourself clean and sober, and we will talk about this in the morning. This isn't a good time to talk about this now, but you cover off the safety first, then make an appointment to chat with them about this. And the topic of that conversation is all going to be about, something went off the rails, and I need to understand that so we can help you come up with some alternative to keep you safe and keep you more capable of saying no to alcohol, more planning, more strategies. Yeah, so it never comes down to punishment. Punishment will just invite rebellion. Yeah, so we get time for one more?
Okay, what age should we start talking to our kids about underage drinking more in detail?
Well, that's the in more detail is the interesting part. So we do start talking about alcohol when kids are very little, anytime that it makes sense contextually. It doesn't have to be a big conversation, but it might just be that, your preschooler picks up a bottle of beer at the backyard barbecue, and we can simply take away the bottle and say, that's alcohol, that's not for children. That's actually starting the conversation about alcohol. Or, it could be that somebody stumbles and falls, and you say, well, Uncle Bob drank too much. That was irresponsible drinking on his part. He's drunk. That's not okay. So it doesn't have to be anything more than that, but you're kind of naming it and saying it and talking about some of the features. But then in terms of like getting more into some of the content that we've got on the Family Talk series, I think parents are usually surprised at how early you do need to start. That a lot of the really kind of stupid, boneheaded stuff ends up happening in middle school, grade 7, grade 8. So I think you do want to be talking about this early. And so when you've got a kid who's 10 years old and you're talking about drinking, it's so far from what they're doing at the moment that they're more interested in the topic. Whereas if you start talking to a 16-year-old about it, they're going to be like, I'm not drinking. Why are we having this conversation? You're far less likely to get a child engaged as opposed to being defensive. So you can start early, and again, springboard off things that are happening in the news, things that you've read, and you can talk about it in very general terms. You don't have to say, "Are you drinking?" But you could say things like, "Is alcohol starting to show up in the party? Did you know that actually most people aren't drinking anymore? Isn't that great?" So you can start with that kind of conversation about brain development, and it can be part of talking about the body. There's so much when kids start going through early adolescence, which starts sort of at 8, 9, believe it or not, early adolescence, that there are going to be all kinds of things they want to know about sweat glands and hair growth and whatever, and we can talk about the brain and the brain developing and how all the synapses get all rewired, and because of that construction zone of the brain, there's a lot of things that we don't recommend in adolescence, and including alcohol. So you can just kind of weave it in like but of course. So anyways, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you everybody for showing up, and as I said, tonight's topic was helping us get ready for that new persona, that new environment fitting into Frosh Week. But please join us. We've got more Facebooks coming up. And as a matter of fact, we have one with Julie Cole is coming to join me August 22nd. We're going to talk about communication with our kids. So we'll dive more into that. And go back to the YouTube channel, #FamilyTalk. Follow along on Twitter and Instagram. You can go watch all the old the replays. So thank you. Do the survey. Thanks for participating. Have a great night. Bye.